Good morning. Thought we'd all start with a couple graduation memes for you. I know how much y'all appreciate a good meme. I want to first say congrats to all the graduates this morning. It's cliche to say, but it's hard to believe that this day is here. I've been here, believe it or not, 17 years since the start of my internship. So that means I've watched most of you grow up your entire life. I've had most of you since you were in kindergarten. There have been many lessons, classes, events, and trips that we have all shared together over the last few years. And I just want to say thank you for all the memories that we have. It's an honor to call you my friends, and I look forward to continuing those friendships as you begin your next chapter. When I started to think about the number of lessons that I've probably taught you over the years, and it made me pause and ask, do I have anything else new for you today? And I actually do. I think it's one of the most important lessons thus far, and it's one that I'm currently learning. So I not only speak to the graduates this morning, but everyone in this room, including myself. It started when the world turned upside down 2 years ago. I'm sure you all remember everything coming to a screeching halt and everything going into lockdown. It's around the same time where Tiger King came out on Netflix, and Tiger King and Carol Baskins were duking it out. I think I watched one episode and I couldn't watch anymore. And I picked up a book and I started to read. The book is called Outwitting the Devil by Napoleon Hill. Hill grew up in the early 1900s, and he's written a few other classics. The one he's probably most famous for is a book called Think and Grow Rich. He sold over 100 million copies of that book. I think it's the only nonfiction and non-religious text to ever do so. So he's a lot to be proud of, but I think it's Outwitting the Devil that's going to be his most famous work when it's all said and done. Time will tell. That's because while this book was finished in 1938, it was not published until 2010. That's right. For 72 years, the manuscript to this book sat locked up in an attic. His family thought the book was so controversial that they would not allow it to be published until after all of their passing. It wasn't until the Napoleon Hill Foundation got hold of the manuscript and published it, and so we were able to learn the life lessons that it teaches us today. If you read the book, you'll find out why that is so poetic. But in the book, Hill takes 20 years to write this book. Over the course of 20 years, he interviews 25,500 people who had come to the end of their life. 25,000 were considered failures. Only 500 were considered a success. More interestingly, the time in which he did all this was around or before, during, and after the Great Depression. Hill takes those 25,000 failures who had come to the end of their life, who felt like they didn't live up to their potential, who left chips on the table, who had regrets, and he turns all of their answers into an interview with the devil himself about how and why so many come to the end of their life and ask the question, what if? It's a fascinating read as Hill and the devil goes back and forth, spar back and forth, and Hill asks insightful questions of him, and the devil, ironically, answers truthfully about how and why he does things. The point of the book is to teach you what happens when you live your life on autopilot. It teaches you what happens when you don't live your life intentionally. In the book, the devil calls this life of autopilot drift. Listen to the devil's own words from the book about drift. He says, "My greatest weapon over human beings consists of two secret principles by which I gain control of their minds. I'll speak first to the principle of habit, which I silently enter the minds of people. By operating through this principle, I establish the habit of drifting. When a person begins to drift in any subject, he is headed straight towards the gates of hell." What he's alluding to is we all think that we're making conscious decisions every day, and we think we're in control of everything in our everyday life. But many of the things that we do and say are on autopilot. Our habits, our patterns, our unconscious belief system that we have developed over the course of a lifetime is what is guiding us most of our day. Neuroscience has shown that 95% of our thoughts, our feelings, and our behaviors fall below our conscious detection. It's an astounding number, and I really want to believe that I'm in more control than that. But if you think about your brain and its operating system, you begin to understand how that's possible. You see, your brain's only 2% of your body mass, so physically speaking, it's not that big. But it requires 20 to 25% of your body's energy. Therefore, it's taxing your system constantly. It needs to develop shortcuts to be more efficient so that you can get through your day. Imagine every day you wake up and you have to figure out where you are. Imagine every day you have to figure out for the first time how to walk, how to take a shower, brush your teeth, putting on clothes, cooking breakfast, making coffee, starting your car. All the little things that you do each and every day, you have to figure them out for the very first time. You wouldn't get out the door. You'd be exhausted by 8 a.m. The point is the very important function that your unconscious system plays. This system includes all of your beliefs and your habits about work, about school, about church, your manners, your worldview, and so on, are influencing everyday decisions you make. Now, the other 5% of your brain, this is where you can make conscious choices. This is where you can be intentional about things. This is where willpower and discipline reside. This is where you can say to yourself, I'm going to go do that and then get it done. The only part is this part of the brain depletes at the end of the day. It breaks down, and so it defaults to your habits and patterns that you have in your unconscious mind. This is why you see and hear people come home from work at the end of a long day, and they just flake out and watch TV the rest of the evening. This is why you see somebody stick to their diet all day, only to succumb to the late night snack they know they shouldn't eat. This is why around 3 o'clock each day, you can go on social media and you can see memes like this on the screen. But here's the thing. If the devil can get you to drift, and you don't even tap into the 5% of your brain where you are living intentionally, he gets you into what the book calls a hypnotic rhythm. It's an indefinite state of autopilot, a never-ending pattern of going through the motions. We want to believe that we have more control of this and that this isn't true. But every one of us in this room, in some form or fashion, in some area of our life, are probably drifting. It's easy to get caught up in this hypnotic rhythm. It's only when an outside force thrusts itself upon us that we can break free from drift. And these outside forces are usually pretty terrible. It can be something like losing a loved one. It can be a scary diagnosis. It can be any major event that happens to you or someone you know in your community. These outside forces are things that happen to us or someone we know, and they make us step back and think, why on earth am I here? Am I doing the right things? Am I focusing on what is most important? It forces us to face the reality of what we have been doing up until that point. You see, these outside forces, they can be good. I'm sure there's some people in this room or somebody that you know that can say and look back at their life and say, because this one thing happened, I am now a better person because of it. But let me ask you a question. If you have to have a terrible experience in order for you to wake up, how in control of your life are you really? The next question is, can you wake yourself up and break free from drift before you get smacked in the face? I believe you can call the shots before something happens. In order to do that, we have to break free from drift and live intentionally, actively pursuing the reason that God put us here on this earth. Now, this book has been taken under the wing of many in the self-help space. It's been pushed more as a book to help you be successful, and it is. The same people that pitch this book in the secular space defines hell as the day of your death, you meet the person that you could have become. Well, it's a clever definition. It's a catchy definition. We know that there's more to hell than that. While the book has been adopted by many in the non-religious world, I can't help but think that that book was written for the church in this generation. So I'm going to give you 4 questions to honestly ask yourself to tell if you are drifting and how to break free from drift. The first one is this. Do you make decisions out of fear? One of the quotes directly from the devil in this book is this. It reads, "One of my cleverest devices for mind control is fear. I plant the seed of fear in the minds of people, and as these seeds germinate and grow through use, I control the space they occupy." When I look at the church as a whole, worldwide today, I see a body that is paralyzed by fear. Mainly the fear to speak up, the fear of being embarrassed, the fear of being criticized. It seems like anyone who dares speak up or do anything worthy of being embarrassed or being criticized for is canceled for it. The call to do whatever you fear, though, is what's going to help you grow. The fear that you have personally, the fears that Macedonia has, the fears that the church as a whole has, growth lies on the other side of those fears. You may have heard it said, and the Bible says, do not be afraid 365 times, one for each day of the year, because that's how often we need to hear it. We live in uncertain times. The world appears to be going down a dark path. I pray this verse over you that you hold on to and adopt David's words from Psalm 23 to memory. I feel like we're all going to need them. It simply says, even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. God is with you. Life is going to be hard. There will be dark days. You will face criticism. But the church has to start being bold again. If we truly believe what we preach, we have nothing to fear, including death. Anyone who constantly lives in fear isn't really living, because fear costs us our future. Living in fear puts us on the defensive and looking to react to things that happen to us. The world needs the church to start happening it to it. We got to stop playing to lose. We have to play to win. God wins. We have to get off the sidelines and start playing offense. Number 2, do you start many things and finish few? This one really steps on my toes. I know I have several projects, ideas, and goals that are not only not completed, but haven't even been started yet. I'm sure we can go around the room and lament over all those things that we have good intentions about. I can't remember where I read it, but I read one time that the greatest killer of great ideas are good ideas. We say yes to way too many things. Many of those things that we say yes to can be good things, but they keep us from being great. I've noticed that the many things that we say yes to are good things are just inside of our comfort zone. This is the place where we can still be in a state of drift, but we get to check off that we're doing good things, and that makes us feel better. But we actually haven't done hard things that matter. In fact, if I'm honest with myself, the projects, the ideas, and the goals that I have, they always stop where the fear kicks in. There's 2 things that we can do to help focus on what is most important to finish things worth doing. The first one is we have to limit distractions. We perhaps live in the most distracted state of human existence ever. All right? We have to break free from TikTok and Snapchat and Instagram all day. All right? And focus on the things that are most important. We have to make time for those things. And secondly, we have to be accountable to someone or some group of people. We have to start working as a team and support each other when we fail. Encourage one another to continue to be bold. We have to throw off shame, stop living in isolation, and help one another. Find those few things that you feel God is leaning in, and give them all you have. Do them well. And it's okay to say no to other good things. In Hebrews 11, the writer names several biblical heroes of the faith and lists what they're most known for. The chapter comes to a close, and in the very next verse, starting in chapter 12, it says this: Therefore, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us throw off everything that hinders and the sin that so easily entangles. Let us run with perseverance the race marked out for us. Could you imagine for a second Moses just coming up to the Israelites and saying, I'm done helping you. I'm not leading you anymore. Could you imagine Abraham saying, I've had enough of this faith stuff? Could you imagine Paul saying, I'm really tired of writing. I don't want to do it anymore? No. All these men knew exactly what they had to do and kept doing it, even when it was hard. I'm sure all of them had other good things that they could have done, but they weren't the most important thing and not the thing that God specifically called them to do. They're not just Bible characters, though. They were real people just like every one of us in this room. All right, anyone in this room can do extraordinary things. We have living examples of decades of ministry and service in this room right now. So I simply ask, who's next? Number 3, can you think for yourself? In the book, he'll ask the devil, it seems that you go out of your way to keep people from thinking. The devil replies, yes, accurate thought is the death of me. I cannot exist in the minds of those who think accurately. I do not mind people thinking as long as they think in terms of fear, discouragement, hopelessness, and destructiveness. When they begin to think in constructive terms of faith, courage, hope, and purpose, they immediately become allies of my opposition and are therefore lost to me. When you think about what you see and hear on the news and social media today, what do they sound more like? Trust me, they will always have some new and some big thing to get you outraged about and distract you. Their job is to get clicks and to get you emotional. I'm not going to get into specifics or into politics, but I am asking you to pause and to think independently, no matter where you choose to get your information from, left, right, or center. Always do your own research, even on stuff you hear from me and other leaders. I can be wrong, and when I am, I want to be corrected. That's how we all get better. We have to return to being able to discuss ideas and remain civil, even in disagreements, without being emotional. I'll give you a pro tip. Anytime someone or some group tries to silence another person or group, it's often a sign the ones that are doing the silencing are in the wrong. The truth doesn't change based on who says it. On moral issues of right and wrong, the only source that we need to be fact-checking it against is God's Word. His Word and His Spirit will give you the discernment you need to filter all the many conflicting headlines and talking points that you see today. Bring me to my last question. Do you have a purpose you are living for? And the best way to answer this question is to work backwards. Because if you aren't clear about where you're going, you can't make decisions in the present. One day, every single person in this room will kneel before God. I don't know about you, but all I want to hear are, "Well done, my good and faithful servant." That is all that matters. That is all that we have to live for here on this earth. So the question becomes, how do we get there? I understand that some of you may or may not know what you want to do completely as you start your next chapter of life. But whatever you do, make sure you are consciously taking action to being a servant and witness for Christ wherever you find yourself. Simply do that, and the Holy Spirit will find you. He will put on your heart and mind what to do next. From there, all that is required of you is obedience. That is basically the progress or the process of my own story. When I was your age, sitting right where you were at, I was wrestling with the idea of where to go to school. My whole life I decided that I was going to go to NC State and be an engineer. It wasn't until the last 2 years of high school that I even thought about going into the ministry. I had people pulling me in both directions. My high school guidance counselor told me I was everything but stupid for thinking of doing anything other than going to state. But I remember praying about it, and I remember asking God to please just show me some confirmation of the decision you want me to make and what direction you want me to go. And within a week, I had 3 answers to that prayer. I had 3 people talk to me that week and just speak into my life and encourage me and persuade me to go into the ministry. The most vividly that I remember that I will never forget, and it wasn't anything, crazy or, some supernatural thing. It was a simple conversation. I was standing in the doorway of the kids' church room waiting for probably some of you to show up for class. And Wade Parham walked down the hallway, and he just simply started asking me questions about what I was going to do next. And we sat there and we talked for a good 10 or 15 minutes. And his words of encouragement to me were one of the confirmations that I needed to make the decision to go into ministry. And as they always say, the rest is history. Your purpose will be made clear when you offer your talents and your abilities to God and allow His Holy Spirit to guide you in the right direction. You see, many people believe that you need to do something really bad in order to go to hell. But the truth is, the devil doesn't need you to be a drunk. The devil doesn't need you to be a drug addict. He doesn't need you to be unfaithful. He doesn't need you to be a gossip. He doesn't need you to murder someone. I'm sure he wouldn't mind persuading you to do any of those things. He just needs you to not make the intentional choice to follow Jesus. That's all he has to do. He just needs you to be a good person who does nothing. He just needs you to drift. Listen to what he says about drift again here. Drifting is the most common cause of failure in every walk of life. I can control anyone whom I can induce to form the habit of drifting on any subject. The reason for this is twofold. First, the drifter is putty in my hands to be molded into whatever pattern I choose, because drifting destroys the power of individual initiative. Second, the drifter cannot get help from my opposition, because my opposition is not attracted to anything soft and useless. Soft and useless are harsh words. Soft and useless sounds a lot like a good person who doesn't really stand for anything to me. It sounds like somebody who is lukewarm. Jesus, in speaking in Revelation to one of the churches, has this to say to them in chapter 3. He says, I know all the things you do, that you are neither hot nor cold. I wish that you were one or the other. But since you are lukewarm, like lukewarm water, neither hot nor cold, I will spit you out of my mouth. Be diligent and turn from your indifference. Young and old in the room, including myself, the church needs our help in turning away from indifference. It needs our help in no longer being silent. Jesus doesn't want a bunch of casual Christians. He wants committed soldiers who are willing to do anything that needs to be done. So the challenge is before us this morning. Do we continue to drift, or do we break free? Are we going to snap out of a hypnotic rhythm of going through the motions? Are we going to be more than people who are just good people who don't break rules? I challenge each and every one of you this morning to do something great for the kingdom. We have a king that expects more of all of us. The future of the church depends on it. Maybe you're here this morning and you've never made the decision to follow Jesus at all. If that's you, we invite you to come forward during this next song. Congrats again to the graduates and their families, the class of 2022. I love each and every one of you.